folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Yes, it's early, it's dark. I get it. I'm driving on the highway. I have left the Ozarks. No longer in the Ozarks. It kind of brings a tear to my eye. I already feel homesick. Little trip today, going into northern parts of Missouri. Nothing bad up in the northern parts of Missouri, but it's not the Ozarks. And if you're from the Ozarks, I think you know what I mean. That's just home, just the Ozarks. Anyways, there's probably a lot of stuff going on. I've been busy this morning, been on the road for a couple of hours already. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, we could have bombed whoever and everything falling apart. And, there's all kinds of possibilities. And it's that way kind of every day, it seems. There's always something, and it seems to be getting worse, and it wears you down. And we have to realize that as preppers and as believers that looks like there's maybe an accident up ahead, so I've got to slow down. That we've got to, yes, stay informed of this stuff. I mean, that's important, but we have to look beyond it and realize that we are not. I mean, we're in this world, we live in it, but we're not part of it. And the reason why we prepare is so that we can survive this kind of stuff, not get caught up in it, and it not affect us as much. I mean, yes, it's always going to affect us, but hopefully not as much. And hold on a second. Yeah. That's also why, one of the great things about being a believer and knowing how the story ends is that we know that the Father wins in the end. We've read the end of the book. Hopefully you have. And everything in between. And we can't allow this stuff that's going on to bring us down. We can't allow it to get us into this worried state, this fearful state, because that's what Satan wants. He wants us to live in fear and to just be in despair and lose hope. We know that this world is doomed to failure, okay? We don't know that that's now, but we know that that's the eventual trajectory, right? And we do the best that we can. We shine our light as best as we can. We, the light of Yeshua through us. And we prepare for the uncertainties and the bad times. But we can't allow ourselves to get kind of downtrodden. And I think a lot of people, that happens. A lot of people just, they see the stuff, they kind of break down a little bit. I know one thing here lately. I've seen comments, I've had people tell me personally, people that were hopeful that this administration would be the change that they wanted it to be, that they believed, they bought the line, right? They bought the line that things were going to turn around and be great, and we were going to live in this prosperous, free, conservative nation. And they're starting to see that maybe that's not true. The no new wars and prosperity and financial, bliss and all that isn't looking quite that way. And the things that's being told, the things that's coming out of the White House, and there's a lot of it that's just not true. And I think people are starting to wake up to that more and more, and that's also a reason why some people are kind of down about things, because they believed it. They realized that they got kind of suckered, and that happens. It happens. But we can't give up. We can't allow it to beat us down and to lose faith and lose hope. Actually, Scripture tells us that we should be joyful because of tribulation, and that we should find it joyful that we are in the target of attacks, because that just means that we have a strong faith in that we are on the right side. If you're not on the right side, then you're not necessarily the one being attacked, so to speak. And so, as the economy gets worse, as personal finances, things get tougher and tighter, and it's going to happen. The things that I was saying yesterday, that the country is very, very, very likely going to start showing serious signs of struggle, and people are going to start hurting. They really are. Already they are, but I think it's about to get a lot worse. And we're probably going to hear more and more lies to tell us that things are great and people are thriving, and the country is doing great and prices are down. And this is when we need to pray for discernment, pray for strength, and stay focused on our mental, physical, and spiritual preparedness. I've seen a lot of predictions, and I'm not the one making these predictions, but I've seen some different predictions believing that next year it's really going to start hurting. And what's interesting is there's predictions saying it's really going to start hurting, but the White House and the president says that next year is the year that all of this stuff that's going on really comes together, and we really start, entering this new golden era. I kind of find it interesting that that's both being said. We need to be really working on, all of us need to be really working on taking preparations seriously. And I'm not just talking about cans of corn and buckets of beans. We need to be taking our preparations of just mentally preparing ourselves, financially preparing ourselves, spiritually preparing ourselves. There's just too many things that seem to be setting into place. Yesterday when I was talking to you about looking back through history at pivotal points in different societies where they've kind of fell apart and break down. A lot of times the history books will say, well, it was this incident that caused, the economy to collapse, or caused the Civil War, or whatever it is. But what they don't tell you are all the things in that society that led up to that point. And that's what we're living in right now. We are living in all of those little things that are being set into place, the little things that are changing the culture in America, that's changing the perception, that's changing attitudes, that is leading up to a point that if we continue down this trajectory, I believe very firmly that we're setting ourselves up for a pretty big disaster. And so we need to be staying positive and keeping faithful and continually praying for discernment, guidance, strength. And we also need to be very much getting ready for the possible or likely outcome of this. Because it doesn't look good. I mean, when you look at all, just on the economic side, U.S. debt, I mean, we increased $1 trillion in just over 2 months. Consumer debt is at an all-time high. Delinquencies, the housing market, everything, prices of stuff, the walking away from the U.S. dollar. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know if I said it yesterday in a video, but Japan and South Korea are now talking to China about doing trade in local currencies. That's huge. Japan and South Korea are some of our strongest trade partners, and Japan has been the biggest purchaser of U.S. debt ever. And they're now possibly considering not doing that. It's a big, big deal. And we need to be ready for it, because the possible and becoming more likely outcome of all of this looks really bad. So it's not something to fall apart in fear. It's something to use it as motivation to push yourself a little bit more in your mental, physical, and spiritual preparedness. Look at it this way: if in the end things turn around and we do turn into this great, prosperous, golden era, then, what really have you lost? Not much. You're just a little bit more prepared for when it happens next time, or the next problem that happens in your life. There's not really a negative in doing this, but there is if you don't. So be working and pushing yourself, folks, because just about everything indicates that we're about ready to enter a pretty rough, dark time period. It's time to get your houses in order, folks, and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.